In my 30-year career, I have read hundreds and hundreds of personal finance books. Some are really good, some are terrible. To avoid you having to wade through all the books that are out there, I've narrowed it down in each of the key personal finance categories, my top reviewed books, and I'm going to give you an overview of them all. Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Jason Butler and I'm a personal financial wellbeing expert. And one of the things that I talk a lot about is achieving and maintaining personal financial independence. That state when paid work is optional, you work because you want to, not because you have to. And as you know, on your financial wellbeing journey, you need knowledge as well as to take action. And one of the ways that you get that knowledge is to read good books. There's no substitute for it. Now in today's video, I'm going to give you a quick whistle-stop overview of 3 of my top recommended books for achieving and maintaining financial independence. The first one is How to Think About Money by Johnathan Clemans. Now Johnathan Clemans is a British guy who now has lived in America for about 25 years. And he's a prolific writer about personal finance. And this book is a really nice I would say a nice gentle overview to thinking strategically about your money, as well as the key things that really matter. And what Johnathan does is he breaks it down into 5 key areas. He talks about buying happiness. So in other words, the role of money in achieving contentment and happiness. He also explains why you need to think really long term, sort of 80 plus years, because you've got to actually bet on living a long time, not a short time. He also talks about the issue that we have with making financial decisions and the fact that we don't make logical decisions. So he talks about rewiring your brain. And he also talks about expanding your horizons, going outside your comfort zone, thinking bigger than perhaps you are at the moment when it comes to your finances. And he also talks about to win, you mustn't lose. So in other words, there he's getting you to think about thinking of the downsides, okay, and minimizing the impact of downsides as much as trying to win and achieve upside. So a really, really easy book to read, loads of great tips and ideas. You will come away from that with a kind of really clear understanding of how to think better about your money, and also the fact that you don't need to be overwhelmed. And this is particularly useful for some of my younger viewers, in that it's easy to get overwhelmed and think that the odds are stacked against you. Well, Jonathan's book gives you really what I call rational optimism, in the sense that it sets out a game plan, and he talks about really developing the thinking that you need to win with money. So I really recommend that one. Now the next one is The Simple Path to Wealth by JL Colins. Now JL Colins is a guy, I think he's in about his, must be 70s now. He's been investing for years, and he's had a website for a long time where he writes about money. And he was inspired to write this book when he wrote a letter to his daughter about what he wanted her to know about money and the role of wealth. And a whole host of things that JL Colins talks about here. He talks about starting early. He talks about living like a student for the first 10 years of your working life. So in other words, keep your 20s like they are when you were a student at college. He talks about saving and investing 25% of your wealth. He also talks about the concept of not trying to be smart when it comes to investing. So in other words, what he's talking there is about using low-cost index funds, keeping your costs low, keeping your taxes low, being patient, and talks about simplicity is everything. So you can be too clever when it comes to money. It's a big read, but it's actually easy. My favorite chapter is the chapter that he writes at the end, where it says, this is basically a summary of the letter that he sent to his daughter. So think about the letter to his daughter as the kind of overview of all the things he wants her to know. And the rest of the book is like the manual if you want to deep dive into each of those areas. So really, really recommended that one. Now the next one is my favorite of all 3. It's called The Geometry of Wealth by Brian Portnay. Now this book is amazing. So what Brian does in this book is he sets out a simplified process, a framework, if you will, for making money decisions. He talks about identifying, being clear on your purpose, about setting priorities, and then making financial decisions or the tactics that you need to employ. And he also makes a really big distinction between being rich and having wealth. So having rich is consuming lots of things, spending lots of money on consumption and lifestyle. Whereas wealth is funded contentment, and he talks about living a flourishing life. And he doesn't duck from the fact that it's difficult and it's harder now to earn a good living, to get good investment returns. But the point with this book is he just gives a framework and says that, okay, about half of your situation is determined by your genetics and your circumstances, but the other half is about the actions, the decisions, the behaviors and the habits that you develop. Fantastic book. You will love reading that. If there's only one of the three that you buy this one. I loved it. I read it all the time. Look at how thumbed it is. Just, I love it. So there's my top 3 book recommendations for attaining and maintaining financial independence. And if you like this video, do hit subscribe and the like button, and check out my other personal finance book review videos in this series.